Welcome to Baker's channel where stories unfold, covering trials, dramas untold. Grab your seats, settle in, start the show. Courtroom clashes, the fun we bestow. Baker's channel, action's hot, dramas and fun, all we've got. Discuss, debate, break it down. Baker's channel, just the best in town. Lawyers spar, tensions high, sparks fly. We laugh, we learn, dive into the why. Join the chat, have your say, it's your place too. Every twist, we're here for you. Baker's channel, action's hot, draws and fun, all we got. Discuss, debate, break it down. Baker's channel, just the best in town. Damn, please let join the crowd. Baker's channel, we're live and loud.
Good evening, everyone. Well, good afternoon to all you Americans. And it's right, Baker only have one speed, and it's go when he gets started. We were talking in the background, so it's nice being back with the gang. And to the gang today, we have added, I don't know which corner I'm pointing in, Mr. Shizzy Wisnot, because Mike, you all know and love. Mark, you all know and love. Shizzy is kind of new to this. He didn't cover the Karen Reed, so he just went in and read the affidavit, which is nightmare fuel. So
Yes.
It's about some of the worst allegations I have read, especially the text messages. But we'll probably get into a whole lot of that. But thank you all for being able to join me with a short little notice.
Thank you.
Hey, Ozzy. And I thought, because I saw, as we probably all did, we saw this press conference, and this part kind of stuck with me.
Back in 2021, when the information was available, Senator Burchmore's death was ruled a suicide, or deemed a suicide. But over the last year or so, the FBI and our office have been working exhaustively with our state partners. We've uncovered critical new information, examined the existing information, all of which led to this federal grand jury indictment. If convicted on this charge.
So initially ruled a suicide with the evidence present at the time. And when I heard that, I thought, yeah, but I saw the one who did the investigation, especially the forensic, the technical forensic stuff on the phones. So was it any wonder they didn't find anything? 37,000 text messages that the state police can't find. It's just amazing, the coincidence that the same person who couldn't find anything in the Karen Reed case couldn't find anything in the Sandra Birchmore. At what point does it become more than incompetence? And he got promoted after this.
I don't know. Is it all incompetence, or how often do you change out your cell phone? I mean, I know that mine gets changed out at least every 2 to 3 years. So it's a possibility that the reason they're not finding is they never uploaded any of the stuff off the cloud. Maybe.
Yeah, but why didn't they look at the cloud?
Well, they did.
That's my big question, because that's what the feds did. The feds went to the cloud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The issue is the feds found it. The state didn't. The feds did. In Karen Reed, Guarino couldn't find it. The feds did. Moreover, and having some experience in dealing with this, I've come across situations where the state tries to get into a phone or a cloud. They can't do it for whatever reason. Oftentimes, they seek federal assistance or outsource to try to help. Is there any suggestion that the state police here did that? No. The available information suggests that they said, "Oops, he deleted everything. We can't find it." nothing to see here. What's for dinner? That's what it appears that they did here. And you
Makes
said how
sense.
many, and when, at what point does it become a concern as opposed to incompetence? Well, it's only happened on the two biggest cases in which dead bodies have been found in a small town, which is one is shocking, two is unbelievable. And in both of those cases, the same trooper has been, incompetent at best or complicit at worst. So that's the kind of thing that the federal government will look into, and you can be sure is part of the continuing investigation. And they'll try to get to the bottom of that and see, are there any other cases in which this guy has been unable to find evidence, and if so, are there any patterns? Does it inure to the benefit of law enforcement accused of wrongdoing, that sort of thing? And also, are they going to get cooperators? I'd say the chances are high. They just unleashed about as serious as an indictment as you can get. And if you want to smack people across the face and get their attention to say, we're not screwing around here, the professionals are at work and it's time to pay attention. If you're somehow aware of misdoings in the state police, the DA's office, or the Canton police, about either one of these cases, it's probably time to schedule an appointment to go see some important people in Boston.
Yeah, I think you can't rule out incompetence, but I think every day that goes by, I become convinced it's much more than that, like every day. And I think that in the end, we're going to find out. The feds are going to let us know. And I wouldn't doubt if people are already cooperating that we don't know about. And look at Fanning too. Besides Guarino, there's Fanning, who lead investigative for the state police, and he's involved in the Karen Reed jurors. Like, think about that. And then think about Michael Lang too, and other information that's coming out that there might have been some other evidence that was overlooked that day that was sitting there. I didn't see the federal government praise Canton police. So I would love to see, I want to see where they go, where the feds go with Berkowitz, Rafferty, Fanning, Guarino, all of these guys, Tully. I mean, I'd be nervous if I were them. And up the chain, up to Morrissey.
So, I'd be shitting bricks. I would be, I think the actual number of messages, is 32,719 between a police officer indicted for murder and a young child who was groomed, exploited, abused, raped, murdered, and then framed for suicide, if you will. So, and he went 0 for 32,719. He didn't find a single one. At least when it came to Karen Reed, he found some of the harmless Jennifer McCabe ones, maybe not the Google searches and the deletions with, the Alberts and McCabe's and all that stuff. But according to him, we couldn't find anything, and he knew that there were deletions, and everyone just accepted that. And I think that people in the government, meaning the feds, are going to have a very hard time believing as a working theory that that's accidental. Now, it may very well be, but again, that makes in a good scenario here, if that's the right word for Guarino, that makes him frighteningly incompetent, which of course is a defense to corruption. I'm not sure it's how I'd want to be known in life, but if the options were, on the one hand, incompetent and moronic versus complicit and conspiring to frame people and cover things up, I would take the former rather than the latter. But not to be lost in all of that, if he's either one of those things, given his involvement in the Karen Reed case, yikes. That's another disaster for the DA, using him as their cell phone guy, and it's just another red flag and another hurdle for them to clear to retry her. It's a disaster in every direction for them.
Yeah, and how much will the MSP be bound up by appeals now, by all the lawyers who will have to go back and say, Guarino was on my case. That guy couldn't find his own phone number if you look in a cell phone.
And Proctor.
Yeah, Proctor.
Yeah,
he's highly biased.
Yeah, I think too. I just want to bring up one thing that's just like, I want to make sure we get it out there. The feds went in on this murder charge with witness intimidation, because this is what that guy Farwell did to Sandra Birchmore. She was a witness to what he did to her. And I think the feds, with what's happening to Aiden and what happened to the Canton Nine and what they threatened me with and other people with, they're still showing up at people's houses. They just showed up again. Bukkake showed up at some woman's house just because she filmed Jennifer McCabe one day. So now she's getting a visit like a year or two later. And yeah, a year later. So they're still going after people for witness intimidation, the state police. And I think the feds threw this message out there. This is what real witness intimidation is. When you kill a witness, when you like what the cops did, what that cop did, and other cops with the silence, I think, in the cover up, they did. That is real witness intimidation. What Aiden did is not witness intimidation. I think the feds threw shade that we should look at through even how they charge this. It's like a big tell.
So how much does this bleed over into the Karen Reed with this?
A lot.
Into the Karen Reed case, where especially if they're trying to retry the case, how much is that going to really change the? And I'm assuming that with Karen Reed, they're going to have a whole new jury of the same pool of people that probably are not going to be able to dissuade themselves from what they've seen out on. Out from the press, out from the interwebs, from YouTubers such as yourselves. How much is that going to really affect the outcome of Karen Reed?
Well, it's going to be devastating to their ability to retry it, which I think is important to note. One real thing too, just to go to what Mike was saying about the witness intimidation, and I'm not commenting on the specific case involving Aiden for obvious reasons, but in order to charge a federal crime here, essentially a murder, which is not a federal crime, generally speaking, there has to be a connection to any kind of federal other crime or some sort of federal jurisdiction. And so it is a federal crime to murder someone who is a witness or a potential witness. And that's the one they used. And I think you can't help but draw, well, that's what witness intimidation can be based on their text messages and the threats that apparently were going from Farwell versus in Massachusetts when somebody has hurt feelings and that sort of thing. But I think the other takeaway on the fact that this is being used in federal court as murder of a witness is that that's not a common way to get federal jurisdiction over what really is a state murder type of situation. And I would read into this that the feds wanted this indictment and almost, I don't want to say it's a legal stretch, but they had to dig deep to really use that theory. Usually, cross state lines, that's easy. There's your federal jurisdiction. Or in furtherance of some kind of fraudulent scheme that's a federal crime, that's easy. They seem to really want to do this and make sure that this poor girl's tragic, really last 10 years of her life, really, leading up to what happened ultimately with the allegations that ended her life, that it be properly accounted for in a criminal court, and that justice for her and due justice for Farwell and anyone else involved is coming as well. So I think that is a major thing. What I wouldn't read too much into is the very diplomatic language by the U.S. attorney thanking the state police. That doesn't mean anything. That's standard. Now, he did not mention the Canton police, and, everyone else is getting a little cheap shout out and they didn't. That is interesting. But some of these people online who say, listen, you dipshits, they're thanking the state police. That doesn't mean anything.
It's like Tom Brady. He'll also remember to thank the reserve kicker.
That's right.
Yeah.
But
do
also,
you think that this is going to end up becoming where the feds might be investigating what's going on with the Canton police? Where further on down the road, although they may get some sort of indictment on Karen Reed, that the state police, that the feds are already investigating those officers that have been witnesses for this. And
you haven't been along the entire way. They got 3,600 pages from the feds about the Karen Reed case. They had paid experts to testify that he was never hit by a car. So it's already spilled in. But I'm just going
Okay.
to do two super chats, and then because that raises a question I would like to discuss. First of all, second part of Handon's razor: sufficient incompetence is indistinguishable from malice. Yeah, and Jess says from her research, Sandra Birchmore's mom passed away from long-term illness in 2016, and it has not been able to find where her dad was, because people are asking what is it. Didn't her parents have anything to say? But her mom had been sick for a long time. It's her aunt and cousin or something who is running the court cases, the civil court cases. But the question I was thinking about, when I saw this and all of this kind of blew up, this is kind of the same. Would the Burchmore civil suit have forced the feds to act when they did? There was a hearing on the civil suit 26 to 27 of August, and it was determined a bunch of discovery was to be turned over.
No.
And along those lines, which came first, the chicken and the egg? My opinion, Burchmore was what got the feds in there, and then the Karen Reed got rolled into it. I know a lot of other people are saying they were looking at the Reed thing, and then the Burchmore thing came up.
I think they have that flipped the exact opposite. And this is the thing to me. And I think this is very telling and would give me a lot of discomfort if I was one of these allegedly bad actors in any one of three agencies: the Canton Police, the Massachusetts State Police, or the Norfolk County DA's office. Obviously, the feds methodically spent a couple of years on this Sandra Birchmore thing. And there's no question that was going on prior to April of 23, or whenever all of this absolute bonkers craziness with the Karen Reed thing came out. However, the question becomes, well, why would a federal prosecutor be interested in a very vigorous defense in a state murder case? And the answer is they're not. But something weird happened here. There's a lot of, I used this on another stream earlier. There's like a Venn diagram here, and it's a lot of the same players that are in the middle of it, from the Canton Police, from the state police, and then, of course, the whitewashing Norfolk DA's office on a lot of this. And what it would lead to tell you is that this is a much broader federal probe that's almost like an amoeba, that it just goes in any direction wherever it is, and maybe wasn't originally so hyper focused on anything. That they brought in witnesses that are involved in the Karen Reed case. That they brought in witnesses related to the Burchmore case. And that the indictment in the Burchmore case has literally nothing to do with, Karen Reed, because this was a Stoughton police officer who has no involvement in that case. And yet the feds are looking at all of this. And what that tells me is it's a general corruption probe related to the Canton Police, the Massachusetts State Police, the Norfolk DA's office. And as part of that general probe, obviously the Burchmore allegations resulted in a very specific indictment, which, may very well result in a superseding indictment, possibly against others. The other point that I just wanted to go back to, I never answered this a few minutes ago, was, how does this impact the Karen Reed case? And, trigger warning for the trolls if they're going to clip this later or get upset and, want to attack all of us for having opinions different than their own. Anybody who is honest to the process and who does this kind of thing for a living and is an honest broker in what the evidence is and how the law works and how the facts develop is going to tell you this is a disaster for what is already a case that's circling the drain against Karen Reed. I mean, before this indictment came out, the case was already a mess and going to get worse. But the problem here in the Karen Reed cases, they already have a crisis in a lack of confidence in the Norfolk DA, all the investigators from the Massachusetts State Police, the Canton Police. Now there's a whole second jury pool who knows what happened in the first case. They know she got practically speaking, acquitted on most of the charges in the first case. And oh, by the way, the same cast of characters, the DA's office, certain members of the state police, certain members of the Canton police investigated this horrible, horrible thing with Sandra Birchmore and did one of these, just called it a suicide, nothing to see here. Another sketchy medical examiner opinion that is not apparently based on credible science. If you read the affidavits that were submitted in the arrest paperwork in Sandra Birchmore, they quickly called it a suicide without doing any serious investigation. I mean, the laundry, all of these messages about how happy she was to have her baby, her almost cringe, delusional emails. And I mean, no disrespect to her, but saying how we're going to raise this child. I mean, you could see the exploitation about the grooming and all the way he misled her into believing this, and the premeditation, all of this stuff. And they just quickly labeled that a suicide. They ignored the chain on the ground, the phone on the ground. You could go on and on. The big one, they missed all the text messages, which leads to the substantive problem in the Karen Reed retrial, which is Guarino is an important witness for them. He's the guy who's going to tell them that I'm a cell phone expert, and I'm the one who's going to tell you that John O'Keefe.
But they tried to do that where Bev said we can't talk about that here. Jackson tried to bring it up that he missed 32,000 texts in another case.
Okay, it's coming in because the reality, and listen, what the defense has to do, they need to fight, and they're not, as the judge has said, they're not shrinking violets. That's her opinion. And the reality is they're going to fight like hell on this point, because Guarino's credibility now is completely, it's a critical issue. I mean, as it turns out at the trial, he's the one saying he couldn't have gotten the house because the phone doesn't support it. He could not have taken steps because, he was on the hill or this and that. You now have very serious, credible allegations in which he went 0 for 32,719, many incriminating messages in the other case. And the key here is that the defense, they're not fishing. They have a good faith basis to ask the question because it's not disputed. And his credibility is open to attack, not just for being potentially corrupt, but for going down the Trooper Paul theory, for being shockingly incompetent. And how could a jury, given what's come out now, not have the right to know when he's telling them how accurate I did with this phone? And he admits I missed the Jennifer McCabe messages, right? We know he missed all that. And the jury shouldn't know that in a girl that was, whether she limits the suicide murder stuff, but the bottom line is that in another investigation of a suspicious death, that he literally missed every single text message to the tune of almost 33,000 between this poor innocent child that is alleged to have been killed by this disgusting police officer. And then he just simply said there were no messages. And it turns out half the case against him is contained in the messages that, the trained professionals found. That's coming in.
You did make a very important point earlier that
every now
and that was something I noticed during that investigation where they had he's talking about the federals coming in and saying, hey, we're just going wherever this takes us to. And whenever you're saying that, it really goes to show that they're coming in looking at Sandra Birchmore's case, and they're just following the trail of events.
Right.
And if they're finding bad people doing bad things along the way, they're getting sucked right into this.
Which is good. And it is. And again, they're not in the business of second guessing state decisions on potentially suspicious death investigations. Okay. Every case that is declared a suicide by a state agency and somebody complains to the FBI does not result in the FBI then investigating with the blessing of the U.S. attorney to say, let's dig into this. That's not what they do. But if it has an aura of police corruption, misconduct, or we think the state wasn't being an honest broker potentially and all this, then they get involved. And then that leads into, well, wait a minute. look at this crazy crap they're alleging in the Karen Reed case, and it smells the same in a roundabout way. And lo and behold, what do? Let's just do this like an amoeba. Let's see what happens. Let's go in this direction. Call up, get me the best agency you can, and tell us. We're agnostic. Tell us, did her car cause his death? Can you even tell us if it's consistent? We don't, again, we don't care. If she did it, she did it. If she did it, she goes to trial in state court. And that's how, the criminal justice system works. So they hire ARCA and say, just tell us, is this even plausible? And then a funny thing happens. The ARCA people come back and say, no, it's not. And then if you're the feds, you say, well, how the hell did they get all the taillight on the ground? Well, then it must have gotten there by somebody putting it there. And, then they start extracting phones. And what do you know? Look at Proctor's phones. And next thing you know, the feds are looking at that too, and they're just following evidence. So
how many other cases is that going to involve? That may be just low-level crimes, not necessarily a murder or anything else. Just could have been a drug arrest. How does that affect those?
Well, it could, if they're corrupt, it could affect a lot. But the investigation wouldn't focus on cases; it would focus on actors, people in the DA's office, people in the state police, people in the Canton Police Department. And again, they're going to sit there and they're going to say, how in the hell is it possible that the number one guy in the Massachusetts State Police, at least in the Norfolk area, cannot extract a phone properly when it relates to the benefit of law enforcement who is accused of misconduct? I mean, how did he miss these Jennifer McCabe things? Everyone else found them. How did he miss all these Burchmore text messages when we found them? And again, it may just be that he's not a good investigator, but they're going to look into that. They're going to wonder, why was that case, the Sandra Birchmore thing, declared a suicide so quickly? You can't ignore the parallels with the Karen Reed thing, where nobody wanted to go into 34 Fairview Road. Nobody had any intellectual curiosity. Well, no one had any intellectual curiosity to say, why did this girl, who appeared to be, all things considered, despite the horrible things that she went through, to be relatively happy about having this monster's child and raising a child and saying, I'm going shopping for gifts and baby shower, all this horrible stuff, and ordering DoorDash shortly before she was killed? That's not what a suicidal person does.
She had online shopping still not delivered to her house that she had ordered, and reading that, and then the hair on the necklace, the belt buckle in her chest, and this girl, no matter how far along she was already planning everything. That's not someone who sits there and can comprehend anything. She was already, I need the name on the birth certificate, and I'm going to do this when I have to do the gender reveal.
She's doing what any young mother would do. She starts nesting. That's what it's called. It's nesting, where they're just like they're making a plan for the future. They're already looking 20 years down the road how they're going to save for this kid's college fund.
Best example, I always use Columbo Little Things because I'm a Columbo nerd. Okay, favorite show, watch it all the time. But if you recall, for those of you who do what I do, it's the little things, the little things that nag, that don't make sense. Okay, people who are planning on killing themselves don't decide to do the laundry immediately before they kill themselves. That makes no sense. Now, it's not proof that, someone could just say, oh my God, I hate myself right now, I'm going to commit suicide. But what I'm suggesting is it's not likely. And when you add it with all these other little things, it doesn't make sense. And they just sweep it under the rug. And then, you miss all the text messages. But then the other disturbing parallel to Karen Reed is now you get to the medical stuff. Okay. Now, none of us, or at least I'm not a medical expert, but unfortunately, having been around some, choking and strangling cases, everybody always knows when it's asphyxiation by choking and strangling. Like the nasty way, the hyoid bone, always. Okay. The hyoid bone. And then you get the eyes, get the conjunctive, whatever the word is. I'm not a medical person. And you see it in all these cases. And the problem is that this is a very different kind of staged hanging. It's not hanging in the classic sense where your neck is getting fully compressed. It's a partial hanging, which, the medical people will tell you does not fully destroy the hyoid bone. And now people like us, or a lot of us, may not understand that, but any medical professional should know that. And yet they just quickly declared it a suicide. And, what did the feds do? They had to go out and hire a medical examiner. That's the ARCA witness for this case. It's the same thing. We need a real scientific opinion because we don't trust anything we're being told. And then what does that credentialed individual doctor tell you? This doesn't make any sense. Never seen this before. Sounds familiar.
Yeah, and it's just, again, it's too coinkydink to just be a coinkydink. But Mike, you're probably the one to answer this. How many of the same police officers are involved? Levy was the first one, almost the first one at both scenes.
You mean Lank? Michael Lank?
Lank, yeah. Levy, that's the, yeah,
and I
sorry.
think the Canton police officer, I can't remember his name, Gallagher, maybe. I think he was there, both of them. Kevin Albert, I don't know if he was at Karen Reed, but he was definitely at, so yeah,
well,
there's some Canton crossover, and then there's state police, obviously. You got big time is Guarino, and I just think the other guy too, Fanning, even though he wasn't part of the Karen Reed thing, he's connected to them. Like you could see he works with Proctor, Buchanan. They're all one, and Tully. They're all like one little gang. It seems like. I wonder about the feds too. Like I think the feds, like, I don't think it's connected, but there was a death that was like I don't know what you call it. They couldn't figure it out what happened, and it was basically looked like a suicide. That's what everyone thought. Is this state senator Brian Joyce? Basically 2018, I think it was. He was like wicked corrupt, like the most corrupt Democrat. And I just wonder, like, what he knew about Morrissey, because I have a feeling those two are good buddies. I just have a feeling. So I don't know. I just think the feds know for a while there's something up with Norfolk County. It just seems like it's like Howie Carr just quoted Bettero, I think, in the about Chinatown. It's like Chinatown. There's something not right there in Norfolk County for a while. And I think that maybe that's why the feds that got on their radar about Norfolk County is Joyce.
The Chinatown joke, and it's funny because it's one of my favorite movies, and it's the perfect line at the perfect time. Horrible tragedies happening. None of it makes any sense. And, you want to do the right thing, and somebody pets in the back, says, forget it, Jake, it's Chinatown. It's not how we do things here. And you see it everywhere you go. Hell, you even heard the judge say it in court during the jury verdict sheet thing. Hey, that's not how we do it here. That's just another way of saying forget it, Alan. It's Dedham. I mean, it's no different. And it's like this pervasive thing in Norfolk County, and it's scary because nothing is going to change here except an earthquake. And an earthquake may have changed things last week because an indictment of a police officer murdering someone who, of all things, went to a junior exploiter's thing, seeking refuge, if you will, seeking how to become a responsible young woman, seeking an outlet to grow as a person, to be mentored by trustworthy people, instead walks in to this group to be groomed, exploited, sexually abused, harassed, raped, and murdered. And it's what is it going to take? And, what happened last week is very rare that you see. And I would expect them potentially to have superseding indictments in this, whether it relates to crosses over to other cases or not. But I would think that some of the other investigators on this case are at a minimum in the crosshairs. It's impossible to believe that somebody like Guarino, who may be totally innocent, by the way, in all fairness, he may just be incompetent or just not qualified. But there's no way the Fed are not looking into patterns of how is this happening.
But we're back to the old thing I said 1,000 times during the Karen Reed debates. The fish rots from the head.
Of course.
Morrissey, who runs unopposed or what is now 27 years unopposed.
I think
And
so.
the first period, he is probably gung ho and I'm going to protect the public. Then the next period, you kind of, yeah, I'm going to protect this guy. Well, I know that cop now. He got a bit of a temper. He's the Brian Higgins of Canton, and then all of a sudden his window just shift, because it's kind of like with the journalists and politicians in the DC. They become friends. They go to the same clubs. They do all the stuff together. So no one's gonna rock the boat they're sailing on. They're just gonna sit there and say, "Well, I'm gonna protect Proctor because he's one of the good guys. Yeah, he ruffles some feathers, but he gets stuff done. He's not afraid to put the gloves on if we need someone roughed up a bit." And I think that's the biggest problem, that when you have leadership for 27 years, everything will rot below that. And you don't see big corporations run with the same leader for 27 years. It's only public management.
There is such a striking similarity between what's going on in Norfolk County now and what happened in Brooklyn, New York, and people should look this up. It's striking, under Charles Hines, the former DA. He was DA for 23 years. He came in as kind of a good guy. And then he became, essentially DA for as long as he wanted to be. And, Brooklyn is, you would not be surprised, like Norfolk County. New York City is a one-party kind of place, and it doesn't matter what the voters are; it's what the party bosses are. And yeah. Hines, became too comfortable, too lazy, and bad cases started eventually coming to light. Bad detectives. Maybe some people have heard of, like, Louis Scarcella, a notorious New York City detective who was responsible for probably more wrongful convictions than any other police officer, certainly in New York City. And they defended those cases. And then some of those started unraveling. The press started getting involved. Eventually, the U.S. Attorney's Office took an interest in what was going on in Brooklyn. No charges were filed, but the Eastern District of New York did an investigation that came out around the time, after 20-something years. The press started changing, and eventually he was tossed out, and, has this reputation. I mean, he's deceased now, but it, was in tatters from what it could have been. And you see Morrissey going that way. I mean, the feds, they haven't come out on him yet, but they just basically said politely, "Are you people this stupid to just deem this a suicide?" And again, he was very political. New information came to light, but only because the feds took interest in the new information. I mean,
the new information came forward when they opened their eyes and said,
right,
"Oh, there's a load of laundry in the washer."
That's right.
None of and again, you don't do criminal law, but
I do real estate law.
Yeah, you do real estate law.
My wife does too.
That's a running joke.
Yeah, but
okay.
But the funny thing is, anyone who have watched Matlock, Columbo, anyone have heard about the hyoid bone? It's such a clear giveaway.
Yeah.
And again, when I do jury duty, strangulation, you always look at the eyes. You always look at, because a lot of times you would look for the finger imprints on the side of the neck. These people just they went in there and said, "Yep, she has a cord." But again, that was one of the other questions, and I think
it gets you know what it gets lost, Baker. It's when you have like the culture, when you have second and third generation cops. Like this is a unique area, like just south of Boston. You have, like, South Boston was the Irish enclave. A lot of those people moved just south. Where I live is like North Shore. It's a little more. There's colleges. There's biotech. Even where Mark's from, Framingham. There's there's biotech out there. There's tech firms. The South Shore is different. It doesn't really have that kind of, like, I don't know. I think it's just
stuck in the
Copland.
past.
It's just it's Irish Copland. And you look at the chief Helena Rafferty for Canton Police, second generation. Look at the assistant chief police. I went to school with him, Bridgewater State. I know this guy. I used to drink beers with him. Tommy Kelleher. He's third generation. He's the assistant chief. His grandfather was the chief of police. His father was a Canton police. They're all from Canton, second, third generation. So that's a type
so is
of
this the same
culture it
with the
is. It's
prosecutors? Would this be the same with the prosecutors and the judges, that they're second,
Well, I mean,
third
think about it.
generation?
You know, Morrissey is definitely an Irish Catholic. He's from Quincy. That's another kind of like, you know, these guys all know each other, and
Okay.
they're not just them. They're sons and daughters. They're mothers.
So
Like the mother-
if you were to
Morrissey's
question
mother worked
something
with
that they're doing, you're basically questioning what their dad was doing.
Now, let's just
is
talk
the
about
way
this.
they look at it.
Morrissey's mother apparently worked with the judge's mother.
Yeah.
I mean, they were cafeteria workers together, apparently. One was the
Oh.
boss over the other one. I mean, that's what we're talking about. Like, these people really know each other. The town jobs are what they took over, like the Irish Catholic. There's not, you know, 8 million universities like in Boston.
And they say there's
and a lot of the
inbreeding
wealthy
in
suburbs.
Georgia. Good Lord.
The area.
culture, it's incestuous. The law enforcement culture, everyone knows everyone, and you know, they went to high school together, and their kids go together, and their parents went to school together, and there's a comfort zone there where it's too incestuous, and
Almost
know,
where
all-
they don't question them whenever they do something bad.
all
It's
of
just like,
these-
well, Uncle Frank would never do anything so bad as that. But in
Yeah,
fact,
remember
Uncle
when
Frank
you
is
helped me
John
out?
Wayne
So
Gacy.
I'm going to help you out.
the state police that are at issue in all of these cases, literally, and that's a word that's overused, admittedly, but they literally work inside the DA's office, and which can raise other possible issues. I mean, there are times where lawyers have to tell investigators, we're not doing this, or have to ask difficult questions. How do we acquire that evidence? They don't look at the Karen Reed case. They don't do that. They defend it. Okay. Even when
Yeah.
Proctor is dealing with his messages, well, it was his private phone, and, you know, they defend it. They don't criticize it. They don't ask the difficult questions like, where the hell did the taillight pieces come from? What do you mean it took you 2 weeks? They defend it. And, you know, and this is another Brooklyn similarity. We saw a few weeks ago, a lot of these cops and prosecutors, they make donations to Morrissey. Now, what does that mean? I mean, you don't need to be a genius to figure out the potential conflicts, appearances of conflicts. Is someone beholden to someone else? You know, again, they're supposed to be on a professional level. They have different jobs to do, but it's incestuous. They're all together all the time. And when you're buddy like that, and sending your boss text messages saying, I haven't found the nudes yet, and he's liking the message, and you're the two witnesses who are then testifying, oh, the taillight revealed itself to us, you start to say, maybe we should have a different look with different people who will actually ask the difficult questions, but they don't. But then you look at just the ADA. The ADA, Adam Lally donates money to his boss during multiple election cycles. That's crazy.
How can that be legal? How can it be legal? Because
certainly unethical.
Welcome
it's
to
not
Norfolk
illegal,
County.
It's unethical.
Illegal,
And
just
this has been
unethical.
going on for decades in this area. Like, I know
Yeah, but-
because I went
But
to
this
school with a lot of
behind
these
school
kids. Yeah,
in
I went to
Brooklyn,
school. I went to Bridgewater State, and that is the South Shore school for like kids like, you know, I'm a North Shore kid, but I went to the South Shore school where a lot of these McAlberts went to college. A lot of these, you know, they're school teachers, they're cops, firefighters, and the way you get a job is exactly what Mark said. So many, I know guys who've done this. They've written checks to people, and then
But
they
it's
get
the
that
good
court
old
job.
union
They
thing.
get that firefighter.
it's the union
job.
thing.
It's
If you want
exactly
to
how it
work on the
works.
docks, if you want to have a job at the docks and you have 1 day at the jobs, you have to pay your union fee to the union.
That's fine.
This is beyond that. This isn't a union. This is
What-
you're paying.
No.
no.
But
Well,
it's-
listen,
it's
let's not mix it
it-
up. I'm a union guy. This is not paying a union fee. This is a
No, this is
freaking
different.
bribe to a public
No,
official. So this is
That's
what's
why I
going
did
on.
this
That's
when
what's
I said union.
Yeah,
I meant
yeah.
the mob.
yeah.
I
I
meant
just
the
want to
mob.
make sure because
If
this
you
is
had-
like
No.
way beyond that. Like you're
If you
writing
had-
checks.
writing checks from the prosecutors on the case to their boss, from the investigators. I mean, this is like kicking up to the boss that you see, you know, you got to kick up, you got to kick up to the underboss and up to the boss. You see this in all these kinds of situations. But you're talking about people who are tasked with the responsibility of potentially sending, in one case, a woman to prison for the rest of her life who almost certainly did not commit the crime she's charged with. And in another case, trying to find justice for a poor victim who was abused for over a decade and whose family was led to believe that she killed herself. I mean, that's the ultimate cruelty. It's not bad enough you murdered her, allegedly, still gets due process, but that you then staged it as if to say she killed herself and the unborn child that she was so excited to bring into the world. And we have to live with that and say, what could we have done to make her happier or helped her? I mean, this false narrative. I mean, what's going on in Norfolk County with all of these things, the only conclusion that you can draw is it's just one giant cesspool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were mentioning quite a bit about this that I was watching, was saying, hey, you know, this is, you know, the family was questioning this from day one. It wasn't like they were just sitting there going, okay, our daughter, you know, self-deleted, and, you know, let's forget about it and we'll move on with our lives. They were just like, no, none of this is adding up. And if you're thinking 2021, they're asking these questions in 2021, and here we are in 2024 before they're finally bringing an indictment. It means this family has not had any answers of why their daughter would do this for this long of a time. They've been asking these questions. And you know, that's just heartbreaking that they have to get federal investigators involved because they're not getting the answers they need.
No, it is, and it even goes beyond, you know, their family, which is dealing with an unspeakable. I mean, the emotions that they must be experiencing are
because they have to sit there and think, what did we miss?
Right.
Should I have called her once more a week so she didn't do this?
Right. The larger problem, beyond the obviously tragedy, the direct tragedy for Sandra Birchmore and her family, is again the lack of confidence in the Canton police, the state police, and the DA. Because I mean, you look at the investigation, the first thing you say is, well, you know, they're charging somebody with her murder. It appears to be a pretty strong circumstantial case. It's all circumstantial, but it looks pretty strong. Okay, that's a good thing. The feds are doing what you would have hoped that the state people would have done. But then you sit there and say, why did they close this investigation so quickly? Why didn't they connect any of these dots? Why were they giving them the benefit of the doubt? Why were they unable to get into the cell phone? And so from a larger point, you start saying, if you live in that area, or these are big cases, you watch, you know, in the news, you say, is there anyone that has a whit of confidence in any of those agencies and what they're doing in investigating? Because to me, the parallels with Karen Reed are like overwhelming. They didn't investigate her, not seriously. Well, the case, I mean, that by going in the house, doing this stuff, or you know, they're too interested in talking to women who went to Aruba and other nonsense. They didn't interview any of the critical witnesses for 8 months that could have been advantageous to the case. And then with Sandra Birchmore, they just ignored all these obvious signs that were not consistent with suicide. And, you know, because they didn't get the cell data, it's not just the text messages they missed. The irony is they missed the data that Guarino was using in Karen Reed. That her phone stopped being active within a few minutes, whatever it was, of Farwell leaving the apartment, and, you know, all of those kinds of things. So, I mean, how does anybody say these people are trustworthy to do this honestly and efficiently?
Well, and whenever I covered this, one of the questions that I had was, you know, okay, so these guys were grooming this young child. How many other girls?
Shizzy, Kimmy,
Huh?
can you please go play on the highway? Do bumper attack, and please stop coming into every stream when I have the lovely Mike and the lovely Mark on. And keep yammering on about this Karen Reed admission of guilt, and
Is
she
that,
said
is that
this
the
and that.
Kim? Is that the Kim that blocked us all? No.
Oh.
I don't know if which
her.
Kim this is. I just know Kimmy is cottage cheese level of smart.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm just going to
one of
run
my-
through some questions because I've started a lot of them from the
I want to know if Kimmy paid to play. Does she pay to play? Will she pay for a job? I mean, that's
well, I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
No,
But
but
how
I
she
did,
got
I
a
did,
little-
I did have a question really quick, and this is really important. Is how many other children were involved in
know.
this that these police officers
We
were
have
possibly
no
grooming
idea.
that haven't come out and said anything?
we
And
don't know.
Do we expect more of that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
but we
I
don't
was
know.
about to. That's a can of worm I really, really want to open up because I was talking to a friend of mine who works in a field with damaged children,
Same.
and because in the chat the other day, people saying, "Well, he probably treated his wife bad," and she said, "No, he was probably the poster guy of the most perfect marriage ever, because he was a demon who got it out outside of the home, and we see that a lot with John Wayne Gacy,
Mhm.
best father of the year every year."
Look what
This
he
guy-
did. He went to the hospital to hold his wife's hand to give birth after this Sandra
Yes.
stuff. I mean, how
But
evil
I'm
is that?
just, I want to know how many other the Fed should interview every single girl who were in that cadet and boy, because
Maybe they already have.
and with that mentality of pay to play, how many very young girls of payable affection could get out of a ticket if they just got into the squad car and did something and then got out again? Because a person like that didn't just have one he used that way, because what I had to read was so depraved. And yes,
Yes.
some like it a little
I
bit
know.
rough, but this guy was sick. He was a freak. It wasn't just, you can slap a butt and do a little hair pulling, but this guy was sick. He was a PDF file. There was no doubt about it. Reading that, act like you're 13 while I force you. There's more victims out there. I'm sure of it.
I think one of the things he did also was brag about wanting to have an encounter with her to the level of physical force that she suffer physical pain as a result therefrom for a month or something like that. And that is just that's sick. It's perverse, it's misogynist. I mean, the guy is obviously a disaster, and I assume you're going to learn more and more about him when people start sharing their stories. Now, the other question is, as far as the Explorer program that you're talking about, the other kids and all that, well, where's the governor on that? Shouldn't she be concerned about this is yet another one of my police departments? Okay, forget the feds.
There you go.
They get major props for taking an alleged murderer off the street and dealing with that in court. But from the governor's standpoint, you already have an ongoing scandal with the Massachusetts State Police that she's commented on, many scandals with them. You certainly have some degree of a scandal with the Canton Police about their almost comical crime scene skills from the Karen Reed case with solo cups and leaf blowers and stop and shop bags and photos of like a patch of snow with no like perspective and all of that stuff. But this is arguably worse. You have a situation where a police department has a program that is essentially designed to help, growing youth of 13 or 14 years old take an interest in how law enforcement and civics work and to learn responsibility and to learn how to grow up and be responsible and get discipline in their lives. And instead, it appears, at least in some circumstance, to be a grooming factory, to rape, assault, and potentially, and in one case, murder someone. I think she'd be a little more concerned about that and say, well, is there any more of this? And what else is going on here? Or had gone on?
Because what did she come out and argue about? in the Can Reed case. Oh, he said some nasty stuff about a girl. Nothing about they bungled up the entire investigation, and it seemed like there was a lot of problems in an ongoing investigation. No, he said mean things about.
Well,
Yeah,
you
he said despicable things, but there was a lot more you could talk about.
you
Young
said
and
Yeah, there was
very
quite a bit
interesting
more that was going on with that.
about the text messages. I mean, the shock value of what Proctor said is I mean, that's what obviously the public is going to focus on. And Mike, you'll remember this because I know we talked about this before, but you know, from a corruption standpoint and a criminal trial standpoint, taking the emotion out of it, what I found to be the most legally significant text messages were Proctor, Yuri, and whoever the hell else was part of this chain making jokes about how to, you know, bully the medical examiner to give them an opinion that she didn't want to give them. And in terms of corruption, that was potential. That, and of course, Proctor's message about how to arrange to get, you know, his wife a gift. Those are actually the most corrupt messages. If you get past the emotion of, you know, I wish she would kill herself and all that other just horrific stuff, you know, about medical conditions and calling, you know, whack job client and all that stuff.
I think the governor could be compromised by the state police themselves, both in terms of donation. They act as her like security, and she's, you know, people I think know, you know, not. I love gay people, so let me just say that I'm a big LGBTQ, but she dates other women, and some of the women have been state police. So you wonder, like, you know, why is she so silent? So for me, she should be coming out and saying something. It's ridiculous at this point that the governor and the attorney general, both of them haven't said shit. They've just been like dead silent. They need to come out and
It is
like, do
interesting.
an investigation.
Politically, this Explorers program scandal is something that they need to speak on because it is potentially worse. There could be more innocent victims, not to the level of Sandra Birchmore, thank God, but other kids who might have been exploited, abused, impacted in some negative way. And there has to be some kind of evaluation of what the hell is going on here and what has happened in the past. And there ought to be studies done. There ought to be reports. There ought to be findings. They should be engaging a law firm to do an investigation of this. They should be doing all of this. And, you know, it's been a week. I mean, presumably the governor has known about this for some time. What are you waiting for?
yeah, that's my problem. Why haven't she gone out and said, we need an out-of-state task force to come in, clean house?
What if
Because
they know
she
a
should
lot
have.
of shit on her about her personal life?
Yeah, and that's the problem, because I don't care how she spends her nights.
I don't
as I
either,
always
but
say,
I think
no,
that's the type of stuff
What
that could
you
haunt her.
do,
Though.
you have to treat this like a corporate internal investigation.
yeah,
You
you have to hire that company that just
hire a
comes in.
law firm. You have to
Yeah.
hire a law firm, and you have to have the courage politically to say you are going to be given a blank check. I don't mean financially blank check, but we have no say, no influence. Look under every rock, look behind every door, and file your report. And
Yeah.
maybe she lacks that for other reasons, but that's what you need. You need independent, uncompromised people with no relation to government, and do an internal investigation and then file a report. And she should declare without reservation that I will publish it when it's
Exactly.
done.
Yeah.
Without fear or favor of what's contained, other than naming kids and things like that, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
Not doxing anyone, but going through it. I'm going to read a lot of questions I've taken out of chat, so I'm going to read it, even though there's a name on it, and we can talk about it later. It's just to answer some of all of these questions. How do state police keep utilizing employing incompetent troopers? Again, pay to play, friends of a friend. Levy started investigating numerous self-deletions. Could they be investigating John O'Keefe's partner's death? Is it true that Officer John O'Keefe asked if Kevin Albert was going to be at Brian Albert's after party that night? I haven't heard anything about John O'Keefe's phone messages. can they fire the bad actors when there are so many open cases? Won't they need them to testify and lie more? That's another big problem. And then we have Hospice just saying, what are the chances that John was a witness to something? Very low. There's a lot of people talking about it, but no evidence has been shown so far he was connected to anything. Did he use his own developed software? It wasn't his software. It was some guy in Cellbrite that said his own product he was selling to police wasn't good enough. And is the blood vessel?
I think he wants to say perchance is the blood vessel burst.
No, I think it's a real word because
when you get choked, that's the medical term.
Okay.
When your eyes get all red, and
what's the superseding indictment?
Asphyxias, your eyes.
Petechia.
Yes.
Petechia.
What's a superseding indictment?
It's just a second indictment that replaces the first. So they could do a superseding indictment, adding a new charge. For example, I think at some point you will see a charge for the unborn child that was killed, or it could be a superseding indictment where they re-indict Farwell and add other defendants and other charges. It is more of a common thing that you see in the feds. And just to put it in like regular terms, again, this is not a political thing. You saw it last week in one of the federal cases against Trump, when the Supreme Court really limited a lot of the charges against Trump because of immunity and whatnot. What did the special prosecutor do? They filed a superseding indictment, cleaning it up. It happens all the time in federal court.
Yes.
Guarino said at trial he currently works SMEX crimes. Was this his promo for covering up CSA, CA, and unaliving an excusable move, more victims at risk? I don't know. How does these...
I don't know, but one thing that maybe seems more interesting today than it did a couple of months ago, and it was really weird at the time. Do you remember during the trial at one point, in what can only be called a real stream of consciousness, Guarino said words to the effect of like, "Oh my God," or "F my life," or something like he
muttered under his voice.
What I forget the exact words, and I don't want to say a magic word that gets you hit.
God, please kill me, God.
Whatever it was. And you wonder, there could be a lot on his mind. He was getting examined about sustained or not, about did you miss 32,000 messages, which we now know what that relates to. Let's be honest. A lot of his testimony on its face seemed a little ridiculous about, driving and my watch was registering stairs and nonsense like that, which I don't think as an Apple Watch wearer for years, I just don't see that. You wonder if he was lamenting that this is going to end badly. I don't know, but knowing now what's been put out there, you wonder if there was a lot on his mind bigger than just answering a question at one trial that led him to.
Well, and some of it could just be that he can't handle harsh criticism of his job. I mean, it could be something as simple as that.
I mean, he was otherwise, pushing back. I thought when he was being crossed, he had some exchanges that were like a lot of those state police guys. They're not shrinking violets either. But he just kind of out of nowhere, just kind of looked like he gave up, if you will, for a few seconds.
But that's another thing, because he didn't come off as one of the heavy hitters in that group of police officers. He seemed like a timid little one. He was probably under the thumb and just like the ME. Well, can't you make an ME write what you want on a death certificate? How weak are you? So I think that's why he was thinking, oh, I'm getting into a lot of trouble. How does the Mass and Canton cops make so much money? Overtime. I saw that one of them made $224,000 last year. That's more than our PM makes.
Well, and that was just in overtime. That doesn't include his base salary. That was just his overtime.
Yeah, more like 300,000, I believe it was.
Yeah, that's pocket change. Do you think the spotlight from Sandra Birchmore and Karen Reed will actually help clean up a lot of the corruption? As long as the governor is not doing anything, they will have to take out everyone.
I think it will in the long term, because I think you're not going to see this tomorrow. You may not see it a month from now, but I think this is the beginning of the end for Morrissey. I mean that sincerely. That's not, and I don't care. I don't live there. I don't vote for this kind of stuff. I don't know how you survive these two cases and this kind of conduct and just missing obvious things. Remember, he chose to retry the Karen Reed case after the Archer report, after the TUI disclosures, after the text messages, and at some point he's going to have to answer for that, as well as this Burchmore stuff. And he's been doing this a long time. He's not the youngest guy in the world anyway. Demographics are changing anyway. I don't think, and of course with the state police and their prosecution model, again, you can't repeat this enough. Having the state police literally encamped in the office, stuffing your pockets with donations, the whole place just needs to be fumigated. And I think that, as bad as the Karen Reed stuff is, and obviously that really polarized a lot of people, the Sandra Birchmore thing is so gross on every level, because certainly a lot of people knew what he was doing, not the killing part, but the abuse with a child and for years and years, and the pregnancy and all that, and nothing was done about it. And and they just missed it. They ignored it. How do you allow these people, and then they couldn't investigate it. How do you allow these people to stay in operation? I mean, I just don't think the public.
Well, it won't. It won't. It'll just, because you get that much more scrutiny. And then it starts filtering its way up, because you start scrutinizing one, and the momentum on it builds. It's just like they start questioning every single thing. Okay, so what the governor knew about this? Why weren't they involved? We have congressmen, we have state police, we have police chiefs that were not paying attention to this, and that momentum starts to build. You can bring down an entire state in a matter of years.
I think they're toast, because again, it's a process. But for example, you take the Karen Reed thing, and you're going to have some strong opinions, a lot of them delusional. We all know that. But from people who have their own agendas, if you will, for any number of reasons. I mean, these are the kinds of people who spent the last 3 days screaming and yelling about her mugshot, as if that's important. But juxtapose that with the Burchmore thing. Is there a single person who says, the Norfolk DA and the state police and the Canton police have clean hands here? Is there a single person, whatever side of Karen Reed or other things, who's saying these guys did nothing wrong and they ought to be rewarded with keeping their jobs for this? I've yet to come across a single person who has literally made any serious attempt to try to, defend, if you will. And I'm sure there's a few out there, because there's always Looney Tunes everywhere. But any sane person, I think, would say it's time to go based on this. Thanks for your years of service. Whether we agree or disagree on other cases, if nothing makes it clear that it's time to go, it's Sandra Birchmore. It's time. I mean, because
they removed Farwell before they even indicted him. He was removed from being on the police department along with the other 3 officers. I think there was a total of 5 that they've been investigated. All 5 of those officers have either moved to other locations or they left the police department altogether, because they're just like, yeah. At what point do you say, and they're just counting their days before the long arm of the law catches up with them.
That's another thing. They were allowed to quit their job. Again, 3 of them, I believe, works for another police department now.
Not anymore.
Mm-hmm.
No, none of them.
They've already removed them.
I thought after April 1st,
one of them was a TSA guy, but
I thought they moved over.
They've all lost their. I think they've all given up their certification now too. Unless you're talking about like Matthew Field, the dog officer. I don't know what his status is, but he didn't do anything when she was a minor. It's like he might have known shit, but he did inappropriate stuff. Trading an animal and having sex at work and whatnot. But it's, you know, the main three, Robert Devine and the two brothers are the three
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
they are not cops.
Yeah,
How does a medical examiner become persuaded to make a suicide decision by police? We saw that in the Karen Reed case. You're an amateur. You can't tell her what to write on your paper. You sit down in a room with a lady who's a ME and say, "You better find this a homicide."
It's that in
Sorry?
a town, I said, this is remarkable that, you know, in a relatively speaking small town where you have these two sensational, suspicious deaths, that in both cases, the medical examiner, which, as was noted by Nurse Kim previously today, is in essence an arm of the state police for all intents and purposes, absolutely unequivocally biffed, and whether it was on purpose or not, but just screwed the pooch on what should have been obvious as related to John O'Keefe and Sandra Birchmore. And again, it just raises more questions about how that could be, more questions about having any confidence in them. How are they persuaded to make a decision by the police? I don't know. Maybe some state police. Remember the Proctor, Buchanan, and other messages attempting to bully that medical examiner and Karen Reed came after Sandra Birchmore, right? So you don't know what kind of stuff they were doing and talk about before. You know what I mean? And if their normal culture of this place is to say, I need a finding by, you know, the medical examiner, who knows? Now, it may not have been the same individuals in Burchmore, but if they want to protect the cop, you know, what we need is a suicide. It's just Karen Reed in reverse. That's all.
Yeah, and they know Mary down at the office. You just go in there and close the door and look at her and say, "This is a suicide," and it's a suicide.
Or
Because,
call her up.
again,
Call her on the phone.
It's that
We
bad.
need this. We need this to be this.
Yeah,
But look,
Yeah,
they also
especially if you let her know that, you know, let's see, you've been here for what, 4 years now, and you want to be here for another 4 years.
You don't even need to say that, though.
No, you don't have to. It's just a
Things
given.
aren't even said. You know.
No,
problem is, because they're in essence doing what law enforcement wants them to do, they're not looking as much at the science as they should. I mean, obviously this one with the hyoid bone, and they're looking at other circumstances. And like, for example, in Karen Reed, what are they focused on? Well, there's taillight pieces there and this. So, well, it must have been okay. In Burchmore, well, she's sitting down with her neck, you know, being constricted and choked by a duffel bag. So that has to be a suicide. I think it's fair to say that anybody, any reasonable person would, if you were to look at the Burchmore thing initially, would say, well, there's a high degree of probability, without knowing more, that could be a suicide, without knowing the whole sordid story. But a medical examiner, then, you know, you have to do what ARCA does. It didn't matter that there was taillight pieces there. I'm not going to be influenced by that. The science doesn't support it. And when you look at what you were talking about earlier with the hyoid bone and this and the other stuff, that's the science, and the science ought to control. And in neither one of these cases did it. And that leads to more questions and answers about what the hell are they doing and why.
yeah, and that's the thing that the out-of-state lawyers and detectives should come in and look at. Why is it that way, and why? But I know why, because again, it gets incestuous. The ME talks to the cops all the time. She knows them.
Exactly.
And they're gonna come in and say,
help the good guys. That's all.
Yeah,
it is.
because
help the good guys. Come on.
Yeah, I know it looks funny, but this girl, she was crazy. I talked to a guy who knew her. She was constantly in and out of psych wards, and she'd done it herself. We found her. It was a clear, okay, I'll write self-deletion.
That's exactly how it goes.
And Laura, I would love to talk to Missy, but again, I like to know people before, and I never really saw Missy before, and now I have all these wonderful people. I would love to talk to her another time, but not right now. Sorry. Can Farwell get out on bond? He hasn't had a bond hearing yet, So
No,
you can't get out on bond now.
No way. Not.
no, well, he was detained on a dangerousness hearing. He'll be detained. There, the odds of him getting released on bond are about the same as
Zero.
Yeah, whatever comes like less than zero, if there was such a term.
Lally finishing a
Absolutely.
sentence without saying what, if anything, or coughing.
This guy's finished. The only issue is he going to shave off several months by flapping his gums, to the extent anybody wants to hear what he has to say, and to the extent that anything he has is useful to them, other than just saying, okay, I did it. They'd be happy to take a guilty plea for him and say, that's fine. So what we'll do for your making us not put the family through a trial is we'll give you life in prison. That's your reward. In order for him to do any better than that, he's going to have to, lift up the kimono and let it fly.
Yeah.
And I don't know what he knows or what he doesn't know, but this guy is going to be spending pretty much the rest of his life, or damn close, in prison, unless he's acquitted. And the only interesting thing is this: because they have to wrap the murder case around the witness component of this, there is a scenario, I'm not going to say a very likely one, but a sick and twisted, you want to throw up when this happens, but they could make a defense where, even if you think he killed her, she wasn't, part of anything. And that would be grotesque. She wasn't going to be a witness. But I don't think a jury
But
is
that's related to what Danny T is saying here. Can the person who take the call about Farwell and did not notify anyone be held accountable? Because that was another witness.
not criminally.
Yes.
I mean, maybe civilly, but I mean, you're not indicting someone as a co-conspirator because somebody says Farwell's an asshole, and then you don't do anything about it, and then Farwell, like a psychotic lunatic, decides to murder and stage a suicide. That doesn't mean that the person who took the call shared his intent and in any way helped him. Now, civilly, her family could probably make a lot of money, perhaps suing the government and a bunch of jurisdictions, but that person's not going to be criminally exposed for the homicide.
Oh, wasn't he already removed for being a PDF file? I mean, wasn't that already pretty much part of the record that he agreed to all of that? That yes, she was underage whenever he started fooling around with her.
You still have to show his intent. That person's not going to have intent to kill Sandra Birchmore.
No, I'm talking about Farwell. Wasn't he already in trouble for this in the first place?
He claimed she was of legal age when he did it.
Yeah.
But they've already shown that he wasn't.
But that's after they broke the code.
That's the text message.
Okay. I was just curious because
he lied repeatedly about it and thought he had the cover of Guarino's inability to crack the code. And then a funny thing happened. The feds
You know what I think is going to be very interesting about this? There's a lot of rumors about the Canton police from the very beginning with Mizzy. Mizzy and other people too have noted that they believe that there were some Canton police that were questioning this. And they kind of remained silent because they knew the fix was in. And and it seems right now like Michelle McPhee, I don't know if you know her, she's an old school reporter. She's done a lot of work on true crime, especially in Boston, Massachusetts, and friendly with a lot of police officers. She's like Sean McDonough. She gets the sources from the police. She said that she heard that Gallagher, who I'm hearing is just retired from the Canton police, was one of those officers that was questioning her suicide that day when he showed up. So to me, it's going to be interesting to see if any of these cops have flipped to the feds. Has Gallagher gone and talked to the feds and said, "Hey, look, the fix is in. This is what's going on"? That's what my big question is. Are we going to find out during this federal
Here's where
trial?
it gets tricky. And again, you can't look at everything in a vacuum. Many people, and I'm agnostic, I'm just stating what people have thought. Many people think that certain members of the Canton Police Department are complicit in Karen Reed, including Gallagher's testimony about taillights and things like that, I believe, and crime scene stuff. Suppose he wants to go in and talk about what I know about Burchmore, which of course any federal U.S. attorney is going to want to hear from. But in order, they do witness credibility tests, right? They want that you need to be credible. You got to tell me everything. Part of any examination of him almost certainly would be, we got to talk about Karen Reed and what do you know and what you don't know. And what happens if they don't believe him, which I'm not saying would be the case, but they think he's full of shit about what he did in Karen Reed, and he's telling them the truth about Burchmore, but he's not, because he wasn't involved in Burchmore, but he doesn't want to reveal what he allegedly, I'm not accusing him of anything, by the way. But if that were a hypothetical, in that situation, the feds would say, beat it. If we don't believe you 100%, the way the feds work, you're either in the game or you're not. And you're not going to like tell us 40%, but keep this out. You're going to tell us all. And
everything. You got to be all in.
Yeah.
Because it won't be credible to the jury either. I mean, that's the issue, right?
That's why if you can't pass their test, they're never going to put you in front of a jury because they don't want. So when you go for a proffer, I mean, I've been to hundreds of these as the lawyer, not as the one proffering, just to be clear, and taken proffers even in the old days. They're going to ask the person giving the proffer, tell us about your criminal history. I don't have any criminal record. Okay, well, let's forget about your criminal record. Tell us about your criminal history. Tell us about, everything, and they'll make an assessment on whether you're telling the truth. And there may be ways to document it. There may not be. They may be just assessing your body language and those kinds of things. But if they think that he's somehow complicit, which I don't know that they believe that in any of this, they may send a message like, we'd like to talk to you, and, let's talk about, trading, maybe you'll get a benefit, which we would disclose, of course, if you tell us what's going on and are useful in the case against Farwell.
Yeah, and I'm just. Oh, Mike's back. There was a thing I really wanted to bring up because I know this is one of your favorite people in the entire world. Well, it's one of our favorite people. He groomed him from the age of 12. He raped her at the age of 15. He allegedly unalived her and purportedly his own baby at the age of 23. I'm so glad they got him. But how did the feds charge this capital offense? Explanation, but no. So now we can trust the feds? Mrs. Cafferty Gaffy, weren't you the one for 8 weeks telling us the feds didn't understand anything?
The best thing that's happened to me in the world of online whatever is when this person about a month ago decided to finally just block me. It's great because I don't have to see this nonsense anymore. Yeah. She's an interesting take because she's a gaslighter and she purports to be an expert in things that she's not, but she's generally polite. She's just annoying because, she's needling and probing and has said many unfair things about many people we all know. But I think the best policy with her is just ignore her. I mean, she's got her echo chamber. She is an expert in nothing, but she makes a lot of statements that are all conclusory. They don't have much substance. There's very little there. It's just, she reminds us that in every tweet, Karen Reed is charged with killing John O'Keefe for some reason. And I would just sweep her out and not give her the time of day and let her talk to the people she wants to talk to, but it adds nothing to the conversation.
And it's just so funny that when we were talking about it yesterday in my Discord chat, she always seems like she's a little 5 p.m. blurred when she's streaming. It's well, Shizzy, in your case, 9 a.m. blurred, but it's one of those where you're sitting there thinking, "Oh my God, I know before we start the stream, I turn on my camera, I look at myself, and there's a camera there." She also always seems like she's confused that she's doing a show. Like, I don't know what's going on.
So the reason why she should be ignored and is not credible, she's not an analyst. She's an advocate. Okay.
Yeah.
She clearly has an agenda in what she's writing. She has, despite saying I'm willing to be open-minded, she's not. She obviously, and her true colors have come out in a lot of these things. But once you're an advocate and you're not, she has no special skill of analysis, no special experience to add to the conversation. So she's just an advocate with an online megaphone to say, I think Karen Reed is guilty. I think other people are guilty. And I think it's terrible what happened to Sandra Birchmore. Okay, agreed. But she adds nothing worthwhile to the conversation. So let her talk to her people and ignore her.
Unless you're the DA, then you love what she's doing. And that they
Absolutely.
recruited her, and it's been 100% confirmed by Turtle Boy and Freedom of Information requests that the district attorney of Norfolk County recruited Jennifer Coffindaffer, and she went right along with it. So that tells you.
And you're right. That's a discrediting fact. That's a major. I mean, if nothing else, that ought to be part of any opinion she has as part of your assessment on whether to find it valuable or credible. That disclaimer should always be given. They literally had emails talking about her usefulness in the Norfolk DA's office, and then she has a wide Twitter outreach, and this is good for us. And and that ought, if nothing else, that ought to be part of the analysis.
Well, that's how she operates. We said pay to play. That's another example of pay to play. It's play for access. You play for us, we'll give you access. That's the game that Jennifer plays. That's the game this district attorney plays, obviously, over and over again. And that's what's going on here. Norfolk County, pay to play. Someone said that in the comments earlier. Pay to play. It's all pay to pay schemes.
Yeah, and what she did at the FBI, I looked it up. She single-handedly took down the Sinaloa cartel.
No, she was a firearms instructor.
I looked up her backstory. Me and Valhalla was reading it one time, and she took down the cartel down in Texas. It's she's. I think
I don't believe.
I'm not saying she might be Captain America.
Fiction. I think she wrote
Tank
some
Girl.
fiction.
More like Tank Girl, right?
I never saw that movie, so I couldn't say that. But it's just, again, it's all. We thought we saw all the crazy with the Karen Reed case. The most crazy thing is seeing the 180 they're doing now. All the back the blues and we help the cops and trust cops always are now sitting here shitting on cops all the time. You can't trust any of them, and they are all groomers, and
there's nothing with backing the blue, but also know what you're backing. Don't you? If you walk into this blindly, you're it's so frustrating whenever you hear this. Because then it becomes a political thing where you're saying, listen, you don't have to trust every single cop. They have to earn your trust. If they've earned your trust and you know what they're doing, then sure, you're backing them for what they're doing. But just blindly being an idiot.
Yeah, Kimberly Fair 2 years ago was all cops are bastards. ACAB.
Yeah.
She was Black Lives Matter. All cops are bastards. And now she's blindly defending the McAlberts. So, I mean, that's just a perfect example of the kind of shit that goes on with these people.
You have to factor in her age. She's getting older. She might have hard time seeing, so that's why she's getting blind to all the things they're doing.
They have a hatred, obviously, for Karen Reed. I mean, they're truly triggered by her, and you almost wonder if some of this is because she's a successful woman, and they just there's that component, all that. But so they hate her, and in order to hate her, you have to decide that if you believe that she's not guilty or innocent, therefore you must be anti-police, because if she murdered John O'Keefe, you're an animal for not seeking justice for him. And they can't separate the fact that if you truly believe that she's not guilty or innocent, then justice, of course, for him is not being served by just throwing her in the can to make yourself feel better if she didn't do it. So then along comes Sandra Birchmore, okay, which again, it's impossible to defend. I mean, it is indefensible. What happened to her and the allegations in that case are vomit inducing to very sane people, and probably makes even a lot of grisly detectives want to just be sick to their stomach. So then, but here's the dilemma that some of these wackos have. I can't come after Karen Reed and everything we just said and then say, but they did a good job in Sandra Birchmore, and kind of be inconsistent. So they scratch their head. And then what I found they try to do, and I think your friend, the ex-FBI agent, tried this. And again, everything she states is conclusory. There's no analysis. There's no justification. She states conclusions as fact and then wants you to rely upon her status as ex-FBI agent. This is exactly what Wendy Murphy used to do in a just much more polite way. Wendy Murphy is a nasty, nasty, wretched human being. Coffindaffer is not. She's just delusional, wrong, and gaslighting. But so what she comes out and says is, what happened to Sandra Birchmore is awful. Check. Agreed. Obviously, you know, the cops that handled that case should be held accountable and did a terrible job. Check. Agreed. And you're going and going. And then she comes up with, this case has nothing to do with Karen Reed, and how dare you conflate the two, and shame on you. And then there's no facts. And that's where you say, well, wait a minute. Now you're going off the rails. And they don't, and again, they don't have the experience in this world. It bothers them when people who do tell them, whether you like it or not, it does impact Karen Reed. Okay.
Yeah.
The jury pool knows that this is the same office, same police department, the same people. They're going to be appalled. The defense in Karen Reed was that she got framed by dirty state troopers and dirty cops. Same people, same thing. And if that's not enough for you, the guy in your case who did the cell phone stuff that said John O'Keefe could not have been in the house, could not have done this, the steps came from here, who screwed up the infotainment system and all that, who couldn't find Jennifer McCabe's magical deletions and Google searches, happens to be the same guy who absolutely butchered the analysis that would have led, in theory, if the state was doing it the right way, to potentially make an arrest 2 or 3 years ago. So the reality is, it absolutely affects the Karen Reed case. Okay, Guarino, his credibility today, as it relates to a retrial in a Karen Reed case, is 1,000 times less than it was a week ago. And it was already subject to pretty good attack. You know, some people have said, well, what about some of the other people involved? We'll have to wait and see. I don't know what Tully's role was or wasn't. I don't know. But
no, but as Tara asked here, Proctor, Higgins, Brian, and Chris Albert. Chris Albert wasn't involved. He was slinging pizzas.
Kevin Albert is what she means.
Yeah, Kevin Albert. But Chris Albert, that's another thing. How his tax bill just went away when he was about to be elected. Don't think about it. It's easier if you don't think about it in Canton.
I can't believe he didn't get cross-examined on that more. And that's fair game, by the way, because not paying taxes is a dishonest act, and that's always subject to attack on cross-examination. But somebody said, you know, Kevin Albert, I don't know what he did or didn't do in relation to Sandra Birchmore, but it has been reported by some people who have reported some accurate information in the past that he somehow was one of the investigators and in the crosshairs. And if that's the case, then you go back to the Karen Reed case. And I'm not talking about him playing drunken cowboy with Michael Proctor and losing his gun, which is bad enough. I'm talking about he just happens to be the guy who said, I'll get in touch with Katie McLaughlin, who just happens to be, you know, the one paramedic who heard her say, I hit him when she didn't hear him before. All of this is bad. And it's all coming from Sandra Birchmore. So when these people try to tell you that one case has nothing to do with the other, they are either I, naive, or two, deliberately dense and trying to deflect. And you have to go with common sense and the facts. And they don't like the fact that they want to see justice done in Sandra Birchmore, because anyone does. There are not two sides to this, other than that Farwell is entitled to due process. That's the only other side. He's entitled to prove it. And then when you do, you say, go away, rot in hell for the rest of your natural life. Everyone agrees with that. But because of the Karen Reed thing and their delusional hatred about all that, they can't negotiate the two. So they rely on these conclusory statements that they have decreed that one has nothing to do with the other because they say so. And the facts and common sense and the rules of evidence are not in their favor.
Chris
And-
Albert, too. I would add that not only did he not pay taxes, I think a lot of people can have tax issues because I think his excuse would be, I had money issues. Unfortunate. I want to pay my taxes, which is, okay. But he ran for office. He ran for select board. And he also killed somebody. And neither of those facts came up in that campaign. He did tell people, you know what? I'm running to represent all the people that can't afford to pay their taxes. He didn't do that. He didn't tell the voters, hey, I'm having some problems financially. He didn't disclose it. The fact that he ran and didn't disclose it, to me, is the most dishonest thing about the guy. Like, it's a fraud. It's a fraud, voter fraud. Voters should know that you haven't paid your taxes. You're in the town that you're running in.
We actually had in the party I was in, we had she was a city council member and a part of the national government, and she got into a lot of trouble as well because she might not have been the smartest, and she didn't pay her city tax as a sitting member of the city council. She didn't pay her city tax, and was a stupid amount. It was like 50,000 Danish. So that's 10K, less than 10K. And she made more than 100K just on the national government job alone. And she didn't pay that one. And it's just front side of the paper, and the papers love to put a politician. That's, again, everyone knows everyone, and it's just I'll give you a backseat in that. But Mike, there's a question. Thoughts about Pat's unaliving, anything shady? I don't know what this is.
What was the question again? I didn't see it.
Thoughts
You
about
put it up
Pat's.
again,
I have to go back and find it now.
okay.
Thoughts about Pat's unaliving, Pat's death. I don't know. Did the Patriots lose a game? I don't know.
I'm lost.
Last
I don't know
couple
what
years,
that.
Patriots have lost a lot of games. The years before that, not too many.
Well, they
are the
had
Patriots.
an almost perfect season, and then they met the New York Giants in the Super Bowl.
Not nice.
That was a good year. What is the ultimate justice that Morrissey will face? He will slip into the night and not be an elected
Jail.
DA anymore.
Federal jail.
What will they get? I don't know. Coffindaffer took the El Chapo in hand-to-hand combat and then took him to prison on the back of a bald eagle while clutching a knife in her teeth. I have heard that story too.
Oh my god.
What about Paul O'Keefe's DUI? Well, Karen Reed made that go away.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to criticize Paul O'Keefe. He got a DUI. I mean, you'd think he might have a little more sympathy for what Karen is alleged to have done, even though a lot of us don't think she did it. But I mean, whatever. I'm not here to bag on Paul O'Keefe.
No.
I didn't like when he came out and sued her, especially because that's another thing. But you were on vacation.
Yeah, but it wasn't just him though. I think a lot of people say, even me, it was just his whole family. So let's not just say Paul did. The mother did, the father did, and the niece did. So just
was the father? I didn't remember, but
nope, the father's in there. Look at that lawsuit. The father's name. People said the father wasn't in there. I couldn't believe it because I'm reading it. The father's name. He sued. Yeah,
but talking about that lawsuit, was I the only one who just thought half of this had been written by Jen McCabe, and the other half is half a year before trial when they still believed all the stuff that Lily said? It had no bearing in anything we saw in the case. She was visibly intoxicated in both bars. That's why they have to pay. She was and I can't translate how we say it in Danish, but we have a saying when you're just, you're being more than normal, where you're just happy and you go lucky, visible, intoxicated. She wasn't stumbling. Every witness testified no one saw any signs of intoxication. And he claims she's visible, intoxicated everywhere.
I thought it was a clumsy lawsuit, and I actually said kind of what you just said. And when it came out, when I read it, which was it felt like it was written based on what the DA told them the state of the evidence would be before the trial started. Not that Jennifer McCabe wrote it. I wasn't that clever or anything like that, but just it felt like it was written in consultation with the DA. Some of the claims are a little, legally speaking, silly. The causing emotional distress by, the third party culprit. I mean, that's insane. And also, if this case were to continue, all it's going to do is lead to discovery for the defense. And they're not going to get a statement from Karen Reed. She's going to take the fifth, and that has nothing to do with her. Any lawyer would tell a criminal defendant client, if a lawsuit is going on and not stayed, you keep your mouth shut, because what if we need you to testify at trial, which is her right. So I know they had to file the lawsuit, but putting aside the fact that no one wants to get sued, no one wants to have to deal with this and just more expenses and more this and that. But if you're looking at this like purely from does this help their defense? And if you're laser focused on their criminal defense, this is going to sound crazy, but the answer is unequivocally yes, it does. They may learn things and get things out and depose some of these people who are not going to have the protection of the judge. First of all, it's in a different county. It's in Plymouth County. So there's no Norfolk County protection, if anybody believes in any of that stuff. They're going to be allowed to examine them at a deposition about almost anything and get answers. I mean, look, they're suing, they're entitled to, but this seems like an ill-advised lawsuit on a pretty flawed theory, at least as it relates to Karen Reed. Now, are they trying to shake down the bar for a quick payoff? The problem is, I mean, someone from the bar testified that she was fine. Is the bar going to throw them a few $1,000s to go away? You know what? Is that what this is about? I don't think so, because if that doesn't mean Karen Reed will. So what are they going to do? Drop the lawsuit against Karen Reed if the Waterfall and the other place say take this money and go away? And then
they didn't do that. They didn't do that with O.J. Simpson. Although he won the murder trial, he was still civilly sued and lost.
Right, but that I'm talking about the bar, whether they overserved, like dram shop liability.
Yeah, if they have a $10,000,
whatever it is.
Yeah, we don't accept any guilt, but here's 10,000. Go away.
And then you have the real issue, factually speaking, which is this. In the pleading documents in the criminal case and what you see alleged in the lawsuit, they talk about all these times that Karen Reed got all these alcoholic drinks that she consumed. And not that I study the trial evidence like a lot of other people on a regular basis. I only heard it once and read this once. But my recollection is that the video that was played in the bar comes nowhere close to establishing her buying 9 drinks, consuming said drinks, or having any idea what was contained in said drinks. So the bar, if they do choose to fight it, will be aligned with her, because they're going to say, we didn't. I mean, they're going to help her defense, her criminal defense. So
yeah, that's. I think that Ozzy got it to 4 seltzers and 2 shots. When I saw it, I counted 5. But this is going to be the last one. Then I'm going to read the super chat. I will get to them. Don't worry, because there's a few people who needs to go. You can drop out whenever. You can stick around for the super chat. But Bev told them don't editorialize videos, and then Bukaki was allowed to editorialize. Oh, she's drinking there. She's getting 45 shots there. What was the bar tab? $41. I bought
Yeah,
a few beers
my
while I
wife
was
had
in
a glass of
Tennessee.
wine and a beer yesterday and passed out at like 9:00 last night. So, just say Karen Reed's much smaller than my wife by a long shot.
But also, not
Your
only
wife's
that,
realistic. Don't say that.
and I'm not an expert on this issue, but
She's
she has,
tiny.
well, but beyond that, she's smaller in terms of physical structure, but she also has
Right.
medical conditions, which it has been said by others. I'm not an expert on this, but I'm just repeating what has been said. So if I'm wrong, someone will correct me. That those kind of conditions can exacerbate the intake of alcohol, of lesser alcohol. And if you do consume too much alcohol, could affect you physically, which would be an argument that you would not consume that. And again, not knowing what was contained in the drinks there, everyone kept saying, I remember Buchanan. It appears that she's drinking a clear
That's what
liquid.
kills me.
Yeah.
How can we have no idea what she drank?
Okay, well, I can tell you,
from
I'm
the testimony,
drinking-
I have no idea. All
This
I
is a-
know is that people said she wasn't drunk. That's
This
it.
is
You know what I
clear
mean? Like,
liquid
that's it.
right here. I assure you,
Yeah.
it's good, wholesome water in my Celtics NBA
Yeah.
finals.
We have no idea.
Goes into that
That's
stuff.
what kills. We have
But
no.
I had
Clear
about a half
liquid.
gallon of clear liquid today. Does that mean I'm drunk? No, it
I'm
just
drinking
means that I had a
brown
lot of
liquid.
water.
It could be Guinness. It could be coffee.
But that's again, the
coffee.
bar tab was $41 or something like that. It was 2 Tito's and 2 beers.
You're
That's
not
what.
getting 9 drinks for $41. That's for
No.
sure.
I
No,
don't care. You be in the poorest town in Southwest Georgia. You're not getting that many drinks.
What else too is you're not factoring in, because it's a credit card payment. I mean, there'd be tips too, so it's actually less than 41.
Oh, geez, I hadn't thought about that. I mean, you can't get
Yeah.
PBRs for $2 anymore. So
By the way,
No-
if any
no more dollar
anyone in the
draft?
Boston area golf, Tom Gillis is a golf pro, and he's
yeah, he is.
quite a funny guy. So if anyone likes
He is
to,
a certified golf pro.
if someone likes to learn how to swing, he's a master swinger. I should probably say that in a different way. But let's go to the super chats and love this powerhouse panel. The Franklin Tyrone Tucker trial number 2 is coming out the 6th of September. Are you going to cover it? I also have the 6th. Yeah, that's a Friday. I have the fire pit case starting the week after, so we might do Tyrone to begin with. I don't know how long. It wasn't that long the first time, and this time his witness that he always was late for court for has passed away. So she's. I thought she was going to die when she testified in her bed. Baker hit 12,000. Yeah, I did. Thank you all so much for helping me.
Congrats.
Excellent
stuff.
grift.
Congrats.
Now you're officially on
Yeah.
the grifter list.
Yeah. Once
Well,
you get
I
over
still don't
10,
make the
you're
grift list.
legit now.
Yeah, but I can't take advice for Mark. He fell off the grift list. 2 weeks of vacation, boom, you're gone.
He was gone.
gone.
He's off the list.
Shame.
They're very fickle over there.
31 years. B. Dallas. None of this works for him. I'm not sure. I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore from the movie network. The world is mad about Massachusetts law enforcement. See, Laura,
agree.
I would get to it. It was because it didn't really fit into the conversation. It didn't have like a question, so that's why I didn't read it at that time. And yes, remember to go and sub. All their channels or Twitter is in the description. Please go and give them a little likey poo and a subscription, please.
I do have a question though, because not Mark's, but Mike's link shows to somebody that doesn't exist on Twitter.
That's okay.
I don't know. It's a joke. I thought it was pretty funny.
On my Twitter,
Yeah.
I put in the
Yeah,
young Jurks and it came up and it said following him. So
I've got the
hit
young
that.
Jurks, but Mike's right above
Mike-
you.
Yeah, no, that's Mark Betterow. This
Mark.
is Mike.
See,
from the Young
I'm
Turks.
Mike and Mark. That
I
gets me
know.
off.
Too much mics, right? Too many apps.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, just
Too many
remember,
M's.
one of them is
Just call me the jerk.
one of them is a grifting dog walker, and the other one is a grifting real estate lawyer.
I do need my
Now,
dogs.
you know what though? Now I'm like just a hobbyist dog walker. I make more money on my show. At least for the last 3 months. I don't know how long it's gonna last, but I mean,
Well, the grifting paid off.
it's weird. It's weird. Like I've been dog walking for full time, like crazy, for like 8 years, and now it's like, holy shit, it's weird. Like
You're going to trigger them worse because now the grifting is like working.
I've really raised it to another level.
Can you make a t-shirt with?
I got t-shirt. See, I don't have you know what? Their heads would explode if I put out a Karen Reed t-shirt. I don't do any of that.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, that's the ultimate grip.
Yes.
My little dog up here, he won't come up.
That's
He's
the
just
ultimate
sits
grip.
there. He's sitting there crying for dinner, but he won't come up.
that is such a pretty pup. Look at it.
Oh,
Look at the
Lola?
camera. Like, don't look at me. Don't look
Lola.
at me.
Farwell
She's
didn't
the one.
even graduate high school, eked out a general discharge from the military. Why wouldn't the powers that be throw him under the bus? Because he might have dirt on the power that be's. Oh, look at those two grifters. This is grifting.
He's
Grifting
I love it.
101.
I
Using
love it.
animals to raise money. Oh my God, we've reached a new low.
this is
Yes.
see, he's gonna bite me.
Yeah, I
actually.
heard it. I was like, I'm gonna.
He's
it was one
upset
of those-
today. He's got something.
Like,
We got to get him a haircut again. He's got this issue where we have to actually bring him in and have him sedated, the groomer with the vet.
Well,
And right now he's
I
got
would
a
sedate
piece of-
my groomer too if it would get my dogs trimmed.
Yeah, he's got a little piece of you know what on his fur now. We're trying to get it out. So anytime we touch it, he freaks out.
You need the you need the scissors. for that
We
kind
have
of
the
dog.
scissors. Oh, you bring out the scissors, you're getting bit. You're getting bit. If he even sees them,
That's
we got to take him back to the groomer, the vet groomer. It's like
Vet
a whole
groom.
deal.
Oh,
They're-
but
Ah,
Brenda gifted a Baker Broken Lake. Thank you for the gifted membership, and thank you, Glenn, for becoming a member. Thank you, Jess, for the 10 gifted, and Glenn for 10 gifted, and Cat Randall for 5 gifted, and APOC for becoming a member. Pretty Paralegal for becoming a member. Sherry D for the gifted membership, and Phoebe Bird gets the last word. Better Roast Dog for the win.
one of the
Everyone,
dogs doesn't come in here. She stays in the
easy.
and
thank you all so
My
much
dog's
for
going
for
crazy over
for
here.
showing up again. It's so nice to have you on. It's always time goes go fast in good company, and also when we have Shizzy along. But no, he's also good company.
well, thank you.
Let's do a self-grift round.
Well, I do streams pretty much every day, sometimes twice a day. And tonight I will be reading Steve Gosney's book with 4 other wonderful people. That'd be Volstorm, Dictionary Diva, Kaiser Pineapple, possibly Welsh Lady. So we'll see how that goes tonight. We may be finishing out the rest of Steve Gosney's book tonight. And then, of course, Monday, I do a stream with the expert, MG Law, and Ballstorm, which is just a men's show we get on. We just talk crap about each other for at least a couple hours. There you go. That's about all you need to know. It's fun.
And thank you, Best Nancy, for becoming a member as well.
Yes.
Oh, you can follow me at the Young Jurks. We spell it JURKS at the Young Jurks on Twitter and Facebook, and on YouTube it's at the Young Jurks with a number 1 at the Young Jurks 1. Definitely going to be live tomorrow. I want to shout out the free Karen Reed standouts, free Karen Reed's or just KarenReedStandouts.com. They're doing worldwide standouts tomorrow morning, starting at like 10 a.m. Some of them have some different times, but look at the website, KarenReedStandouts.com. I'm going to be broadcasting live from the North Shore, Massachusetts, the first ever really Karen Reed standouts up here on the North Shore tomorrow morning, Labor Day. But they're going to be all over the state, all over the nation, even international. I know like Miss Shorty's doing one in Australia, but there's like a huge international list now. So tomorrow's the day. and I'm going to be broadcasting on our channel. So make sure you subscribe to us on the Young Jurks. I may even go live tonight. We'll see. I got my own dog, and I got to go. I'm dog sitting at another house, so I got to go run over and feed a bunch of dogs right now. But if I'm back tonight, I may come back live on my channel and kind of promote what's going on tomorrow. Again, KarenReedStandouts.com if you want to find out. Come on out tomorrow, Labor Day. Big Labor Day thing going on tomorrow. You can go back to Bettero.
My grifting entails of having a full-time law practice, and when time permits and I'm asked, appearing on other people's channels at no cost without raising money and not having my own channel. Interesting way to grift. However, for those who live in Massachusetts, I will be in Massachusetts in late September to appear in court on another case that we've not been talking about. So I'll be spending a lot more time there. But other than that, my Twitter page was in the chat at Bettero Law. That's it.
And Mike has already jumped out. Tomorrow, I will be reading more of the Sarah Boone inmate reports because 70 pages dropped today. Sarah got a thing for cheese. Why didn't you take her on as a client? Didn't you see her wonderful advertisement?
Well, it's funny. Being a successful grifter allows you another form of privilege when you act as a lawyer, which is you can pick and choose. And to those that practice law and they get a lot of respect, public defenders who can't pick and choose, sometimes they get stuck with people, who are trying to go on their 9th or 10th lawyer. But
this guy said, I saw her advertisement and I just thought, what? But I had a poll, and I'm just saying I don't have 1,000 likes, but I have 1,200 votes. Do better. How many witnesses will still be employed by the MSP by the next Karen Reed trial, if it ever happens? 32% says 1 to 2, 32% says none, 20% says all of them, and 13% says one of them. I think it's still a high likelihood that some night someone will drop an email saying, well, we choose not to do it. I still can't see how. Again, they lost Guarino, they lost Proctor. How many else before we get to January? The way I said it's going to be hard grifting Karen Reed for the next 4 months because nothing's happened. There's more grifting now than when the case was going.
Yep.
Well, I always said I did not think there'll be a retrial. I mean, you could be wrong. It's just my opinion, not because the DA doesn't want to, but because it's not going to be feasible and there are going to be logistical problems. And obviously, after what happened in Guarino, I feel even stronger about that. And you're only a couple of months removed from the first trial, and you've got 4 state police troopers in one way or another, 5 if you count Trooper Paul, who are just completely discredited or facing serious investigations. You have Kevin Albert has been punished, if you will. You have everyone in the world who may serve on a jury knowing that Karen Reed was acquitted on 2 of 3 charges. As I know, we've talked about this in the past and we said it, and it will remain true. It's only going to get worse for the DA, but I couldn't have thought that it would get this much worse this quickly. The feds have entered the scene, at least in a somewhat related, but not directly related case. And, that could have a dramatic impact. So I don't think that there'll be a retrial just as a matter of logistics and lack of feasibility.
Yeah. And Legal Mindset is a real attorney. He does, I don't know if he's still practicing. I think he does some corporate law because he lives in Thailand now, I think. But he's a real lawyer out of Florida, where all the best people in the world comes from, because Sarah Boone is going to make me a millionaire. She told me so. And someone put
I've been covering her also. So that is, I didn't realize there was another 70.
She promised us $1 million. everyone covering her trial would be millionaires. So,
I
and I
love
said,
it.
when I
I
become a
need to.
millionaire, I'm going to move to Tennessee and buy a
I'm going to
house
move
and
to
have a
Florida.
yearly meetup.
Screw that. I'm going to
I'm
move
not
to
moving
Florida
to
so I can
Florida.
get to those cases faster. What are you talking about?
Thank you,
Play
Rhea.
some alligators.
Yeah, she got a great lawyer. He has had over 100 trials to verdict. Won or lost, we don't know, but that's what he says on his website. So
That's like a month for my wife.
yeah,
Okay.
but I just watch any lawyer who puts up a picture where his wife is doing that, and he's sitting there. I thought, yeah, he probably needed that case because, well, good night, everyone.
Like
I
those
don't know that
Olin
guy.
Mills
I
kind of
shouldn't say stuff
photographs.
like that. But oh, he went. I was sitting here. I could see Mike doing something about background. Thought, is he gonna come back on? But he just took it off. But everyone, as we always say, hasta la taco. See you outside. I'm gonna ship you all over to Shizzy's channel so you can give that a little likey poo and a click. Please hit the
We'll be here.
thing and do all the YouTube things. And
We'll be doing a show at 8:00. It'll be off the rails if you have no idea about our Sunday shows. It's crazy.
it's Sunday fun day. But everyone, thank you again for showing up. Thank you so much, panelists.
Sure.
Thank you, Mike, even though you had to go make a dinner so your dog wouldn't kill you. See you down the road, and have a great Labor Day tomorrow.
Take care.
What exhibit are you referring to? I'm going to make this 100, Your Honor. All right, 100.
100.
Because it is 100%
100%.
correct.
Checking your honor.
So you literally built a cannon?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
All right, I'm in love.
Go back. Please do that again. Oh, that was the cutest thing I've ever seen.
While I'm waiting for this, did you, whether it's true or not, believe that Mr. Randolph had slept with your wife?
I wouldn't care.
You wouldn't have cared?
No,
Did you believe he had slept with your wife?
no,
Did you believe he slept with your mother-in-law?
probably did. Everybody has.
So there-
Everybody has.